Hey everyone, welcome for our DualShockers readers. So today we have the pleasure of having Joe Shrewsbury from 65 Days of Static. They're here to talk to us about the music and composition for the amazingly huge game No Man's Sky. Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks.
Thanks again, Joe, for talking to us. We're really excited to hear more about the game and hear, just what you guys have been working on with the game, which seems like a lot. It's a really huge game from what we've seen, so I'm sure it's been a ton of work on your end.
Yeah, it's been a huge project. It's taken, I guess, 3 times as long as we thought it would, even though we knew it would take a long time. So it's been really, it's had a big impact on our lives, definitely.
Yeah. For sure. So I just wanted to start out, if you wanted to just quickly introduce yourself and just talk briefly about 65 Days of Static.
Sure. Okay. Well, I play guitar in 65 and a little bit of synth, and we're a mainly instrumental band from the north of England, and we formed, I guess, almost 15 years ago now, in 2001. But I guess we've been releasing records since about 2004, and we've done a whole bunch of albums and stuff that you can, people can check out in their own time. But in 2010, which was sort of around the 10-year mark of us having of being a band that toured, of being a touring entity, I guess being a professional band, we had a short hiatus, and we decided when we came back that we wanted to, I guess, investigate some other forms that the band could operate in outside of a standard write a record, record the record, release the record tour model, and we started to pursue soundtrack work, and we also did some sort of audiovisual conceptual art installations.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2013 we were lucky enough to I guess meet Hello Games, who are developing No Man's Sky, and the rest is history.
Perfect, yeah. And so as I've understood, I went through and kind of researched and looked at your lineup. So you guys have a pretty diverse range of work where you have a ton of albums, a lot of touring experience. I also looked into the silent running alternative score that you guys did as well. So I was just curious about, as I understand, this is your first video game project that you guys have been working on, correct?
That's right, yeah. So I suppose we've always made music that has been fairly cinematic, but in the early days we were, I suppose, quite energetic, naive, quite punky young kids who were making we were sort of trying to smash electronic music into like the best bits of the guitar music that was around at the time. So I suppose like we were listening to bands like At the Drive-In and You Will Know Us by the Trail of Dead and bands like this. I don't know if people are still aware of those bands. And then there was a bunch of great electronic music that we listened to in our formative years, like Aphex Twin and Square Pusher. Bands like New Order, we thought were doing something really interesting with I guess the live band that had the electronic element to it. And that sounds really obvious today, but it was really different back then, and it was a big deal for it was a notable thing that people hadn't done before. If you were sort of making real punky music, and then you had all these laptops and glitch beats and stuff going off on stage.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose we grew up and grew into something else. We got lumped in with a lot of what's called post-rock still, which I guess was useful for people, but we didn't wholly identify with that genre, or at least it seemed to have limitations that we existed outside of. And I suppose the last 7 or 8 years we've been developing we've just been pursuing, I suppose, a unique sound, pursuing a feeling of progression over albums. We're not really a band that likes to. We never wanted to like master one thing and then keep doing it. We always wanted to push, I suppose, how we felt that our musical vocabulary worked between each other. So part of that was doing, as you mentioned, Silent Running, which is a great piece of late 70s sci-fi, if anyone hasn't seen it, with a really stubborn plot that probably wouldn't get made these days. And we were invited by a film festival in Glasgow to re-soundtrack that, which is a thing that I don't know about in the States, but in the UK, in Northern Europe as well, that's been quite a popular thing for instrumental or bands out of left field to do, to sort of break into the, I guess, the arts festival scene. There's a big crossover there. So live soundtracking is a big deal. I think it still goes on a lot today, but it's not the same as doing an actual soundtrack. So obviously, No Man's Sky was the size of that was just huge. So it was a really big deal for us to get that. But Silent Running was, I guess, one of the things that we did that fed into doing No Man's Sky, and to having the confidence, I suppose, to sign up, to say this is something that we can do.
Yeah, sure. Because I mean, even just looking at Silent Runnings, like it shares a lot of at least No Man's Sky seems to share a lot of that aesthetic, where it has sort of a 70s sci-fi tinge to it. Just the way it looks, and from what we've heard from the soundtrack so far, how it sounds as well.
It's I don't think that Silent Running is a really interesting project because it was made very quickly. We didn't know we were going to make a record of that at the time. It was literally a sort of 2-night festival appearance, and so we were quite brisk and we were quite confident, and we just sort of went with soundtracking that. It was a lot more abstracted than the care we'd take over an album. So I think doing that gave us the confidence to sort of trust our first idea rather than like our 1000th idea, which is what we would do in making a record. We'd really get rid of a lot of material before we decided where the album was heading. But that was really useful for No Man's Sky because, of course, one of the main pressures with No Man's Sky was the time constraints. So we had to write music really fast. I can appreciate that. Obviously, they're both 65 records, so they have some stuff in common. I hope No Man's Sky is in a higher definition and has a wider feel to it than Silent Running, because certainly the techniques, the band that made it was very different to the band that made Silent Running. But there's a lot of the first one in the No Man's Sky record, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to go into really quick that the sort of main idea of No Man's Sky is that it's this huge, expansive universe for players to explore. So I just kind of wanted to know, what you guys thought kind of going into this, and what were the challenges of creating music for a world that's so, big and expansive. Because even the album is called, the Music for an Infinite Universe. So I kind of wanted to know, what were the challenges of making music for an infinite universe, I guess, that, players will be experiencing it very differently.
Yeah, it's huge. Let me just see if I can follow my train of thought here without confusing you. But
yeah, sure.
I guess what we realised really early on is that what we needed to do was soundtrack not the aesthetic of the game, but the size of the game, because we felt that the No Man's Sky, the beautiful sort of retro sci-fi design that game, I suppose, nods to would be very easily soundtracked by some quite, I guess, prog rock, spacey, quite whacked out stuff. But we wanted to, we were given the creative freedom really to do whatever we wanted. And I think one of the things we wanted to do was really subvert that and bring a more contemporary, malevolent, a more visceral sound to the game, rather than to adhere to what we thought maybe it was supposed to do, but instead to hopefully make it even better by, I guess, doing what 65 do best, rather than sort of second guessing what Hello Games wanted.
Mm-hmm.
The procedural nature of the audio is a unique part of the project, and I think that, and a lot of this is said with the benefit of hindsight, but a different band wouldn't really have been able to be involved at the level that we were, or at least there are not a great deal of bands that I can think of that would have been able to step up, purely because half of us are involved in programming, coding, actually building modular synths from scratch, the workings of procedural music itself without actually making procedural music in the band. So we were able to mock up a system using freely available software to test a lot of this out. And we were also, I suppose, au fait enough with working with loop-based repetitive music as opposed to linear composition to be free enough to feel that we were able to explore that side of things. And we hadn't done a lot of repetitive music, or at least we'd only used it as a thought experiment to come up with other compositions, which we would then, I suppose, harvest into actual arrangements. But we were nevertheless, we'd done enough of that to be quite free within that paradigm. So what was then even more interesting is that it was clear that what we actually had to do was not do that, but to write a record that did work as an album, as a series of compositions that were arranged temporally, if you want, with a start and a beginning and an end, with hooks and melodies. But we also had to at all times hold in our head that we would then take that album and reinvestigate its component parts and use them as the jump off for this more upwardly scaled, I suppose, rhizomatic way of composing things, where the instances of music relate to each other. So the first year was spent writing that record, and the second, once that record was recorded and mixed and mastered to the degree that you would any album, we then went back into the Pro Tools files just carved up the audio and added a great deal more. And that's what we've been doing really since, for the last year, because the record was finished in 2015, and it's taken us till now to work with the game's audio director Paul Weir to feed that music in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I guess comparing No Man's Sky to your previous work, what has that experience been like? Has it been a different process compared to how you and the rest of the band normally write music?
Totally. Although the thing is, you build up a way of working, and you discard stuff that works, and you keep techniques that. You discard stuff that doesn't work, and you retain techniques that do work, and every project teaches you those lessons. You never feel like you stop learning. So No Man's Sky is unique for so many reasons, because it's a computer game, because it's procedural, because we had to write this record, but it would have been unique anyway, so it's hard to sort of pinpoint exactly where one process ends and the other begins. I guess the album that we've made, which is more of a double album really, is one that we're really proud of, and we feel fits next to the back catalogue, the 65 Days back catalogue. You know, it feels like a logical progression.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a record that I suppose leans more on previous work simply because we knew which aspects of our previous work the Hello Games guys had used to pre-visualize, to sort of imagine what the soundtrack would be like, and so we took a lot of that on board. You know, like the track Debutant that they licensed very early on, that was in 2010. But you know, Supermoon, the first single from the No Man's Sky record, I think has a lot in common with that track because we knew that Sean liked the vocals. We knew he liked the sort of hopeful way that the chord progression was used as opposed to the darker stuff that we've written subsequently. But in the end, you know, we're really happy with how that worked out because it feels like it, even though it does nod to earlier stuff, it also sort of forges forward into the future in its own right. So, yeah, I mean, that's definitely a real positive. We're really happy with the album. We're really happy that our name's on it.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you know, have recently been able to play the game for a few hours, which wasn't something that we had access to during the writing process, and it's firstly it's better than I could have imagined it would be, but more than that, the music engine that we've built, you know, there were a few compromises, there were a few hiccups, there were some problems that had to be overcome to make it work, but it does work, and it's amazing to actually be in the game and hearing the music in that environment. And obviously no one's got to do that yet, but when they do, and if they're fans of the album as well, I think what they'll find really interesting is that the in-game music, while it's creating these sort of unique moments of music, it also the human brain does something really interesting in that it recognises that those component parts are from the record. So they have this really nice symbiotic relationship where you're not hearing the album, but you're sort of hearing an echo of it, and that's really interesting. And obviously something that we didn't know would happen until right till the last minute. So that's, you know, it's really exciting, and I hope we'll have, you know, will be used as a guide for people making procedural music and in games and whatever to, you know, in the future. It's part of a wider conversation that's happening, you know, with the technology.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I actually, that leads pretty nicely into what I was going to ask in a little bit, but just about if you guys had any hands-on time with the game, you know, either before you had written the music or while you were writing the music, and sort of how that might have influenced what you were working on or changed some of the things.
I think there was, I don't know if it was a conscious decision or not, but we pretty much saw what everybody else saw in those early days of the game, which was, you know, a small amount of gameplay. There were a couple of times when we saw either Sean or Paul Weir, the audio director, like in the game, but we were never allowed to, I suppose, explore for ourselves at that point. We then went into a period of writing that was really high pressure. We're not based where Hello Games is based, so
right, yeah,
we didn't see those guys, and we didn't have access to the game. And I don't know if that was a conscious decision, but it turned out to be a very useful parameter, actually, because not being able to actually reference the game meant that we sort of had to imagine something much bigger. You know, the human imagination is however good these games get, they don't match what the human imagination is capable of, and that's a much better point to be writing music from than the actual limitations of what a game looks like. So that was really cool. I think then we did get to play the game after the album was finished about 6 months ago, and at that point we were just so concerned with how the music would work that we actually spent most of our time in the game ignoring what the game wanted us to do or the possibilities in the game and actually just making music happen so that we could test it out. So it wasn't really till about 2 weeks ago when No Man's Sky was, I guess, finished. I don't know if that's public knowledge, but
yeah, they just announced they finished development like within the last couple of weeks. So that's correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was like it was the day after that they did that we actually got to play for about 6 hours, and that was just amazing. It was amazing because we've been waiting for this just the same as everybody else, and well, I'm certainly willing to say on record that it is so good. It's so good. It's really good, and I understand that there's this confusion out there, about what you actually have to do in the game. But I just, it's great, and I don't think people are going to be disappointed. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's people have been looking forward to it for about like 3 years now almost, and so I know it's one that's definitely been on everyone's radar.
Yeah, and I don't think that was. I don't know. I don't think they wanted everybody to wait 3 years. I think they genuinely just had this moment, maybe a year or 18 months ago, where they said, "This can be amazing, but we need more time to do it." So in a sense, there was that game was hyped. It was really hyped up. Like 2 years ago, we got. Is it 2 or 3 years ago? We went out to Las Vegas to play at the Sony thing. Mm-hmm. And the hype was huge, and it was almost too early because there's clearly some frustration with the wait, but I think it'll be worth it. It was definitely worth the wait for our record.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I know. Yeah, with the game, the whole they said that it should have about like 18 quintillion planets altogether. Just the scope of the game is huge. So, did you guys have to write 18 quintillion songs to go along with it?
No, not at all. And I mean, yeah, that's an interesting one. I was in the game for 5 hours. I went to 3 planets. I was blown away. It was like so. The size of the game is brilliant, but that's not quite how people are going to interact in the game. I think we will add more music to the game, though. I think there's an ongoing. I think there's going to be an ongoing relationship with the game, which again is like so foreign to me as a musician. You write the music and then you capture it when you think it's at its best, and you release that as an album. And of course, those compositions continue to have, they continue to evolve in the live arena. But mm-hmm. in terms of records, they're snapshots of a time and a place. But games are so different. The updating and stuff is such an interesting concept. I think we will add some content over the next year if we're given the chance.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, but the procedural side of that is more of a. It's part of that conversation that's happening in that technology. That like it isn't. It does something that I think hasn't been done before, but I think there's stuff that people are going to achieve in the future. I think Paul Weir, who's written the software for the game, has achieved something really, really special. But we're all aware that it's not about making the definitive thing. It's just about being part of the ongoing journey, I suppose, into some human future.
Mm-hmm. So with how the music and what you guys wrote, will sorry, I'm just trying to think of how to phrase this. Will there be any variations on sort of the music and the style depending on where players explore? So like if they go to one region, will they hear one type of music and maybe somewhere else?
Yes, yeah, totally. Yes. Sort of depending on what's happening in the game, the music will respond. But the music will also be making fairly unique iterations of it. It's there's a lot. There's stuff in there that is has echoes of other pieces of music, but for the most part, the music will be reacting to what you're doing, and it will also be fairly unique. So yeah, in that sense, it succeeded. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then, can you talk about? We know that we know that we have the game coming out on CD and vinyl, and there's also a European tour coming up. Hopefully, other territories, because I would love to see it here in the States. Can you talk about those and just sort of what the experience of those will be compared to what we hear in the game?
Well, we're working on the live show now. You know, we're not playing all of the music from the game because we have a bunch of other music to play, and I guess, you know, the album proper is much more what's the word I'm looking for? The album proper is much more within our capabilities as a live band, but a lot of the soundscape stuff is much more abstract, much more studio based, much more experimental. So we haven't really decided how much of that we're going to put into the live show. But the first half of the first album will all translate, and what's to say about that? It's always exciting to play new music live. It's always super, super cool, and it's always nice to see how that fits into the live show. And so far, you know, it's like we've played tracks like Supermoon and Asimov out a few times, and it's just great. It slots right in. It brings something new to the show. I think we'd like to do something more procedural live, and we'd like to do something with some of the visual elements from No Man's Sky. But right now, you know, we need to get the record out. We need to tour really hard and get to a point where we might have more of a budget to do that. We do have plans to come to the States, but they haven't come to fruition yet. And as I guess, you know, people can appreciate, it's getting harder and harder to travel the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, I don't know what people's perception of us is. There's a lot of new people paying attention to 65 Days because of No Man's Sky, but you know, we're not a big band. We haven't sold a lot of records. We're a pretty strange, weird band. So all of this is a huge, exciting journey for us. You know, that can only we don't know how it's going to end up, but it's been No Man's Sky has been an amazing thing to be a part of, and the main reason for that, I think, because we've been talking about this a little amongst ourselves, is that it's been a chance to do something huge, but that has a real creative, well, I suppose a creative nobility to it, and that has gone through a lot to get made, and it's been protected from being compromised. I think that the guys at Hello Games have set out to make something with a vision, and they have stuck to that vision through thick and thin, and they've also created an environment where we have been able to pursue a vision for the music that no one has been allowed to dilute, and so that's what I'm most proud of them for, and I guess that's what's really made it a pleasure. Even, you know, with all the pressure and all the hard times and all the deadlines and all the stress of is it going to work, it's never been anything but creatively fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'll officially put in the request for a New York concert if you guys do wind up coming out west. So I just have one more kind of final question just to wrap up. Just to hear, what do you and the rest of 65 Days of Static hope players will sort of react or feel while playing the game and listening to what you guys have created for the game? What do you hope their takeaway is?
Okay. Well, I guess. It's easy to get carried away with these things. So at the end of the day, you know, I hope people hear music that makes the game more compelling and more exciting than it already is. I think that the game, having played it, is very interesting in that you can really express yourself in the game, and you can dictate what you want the game to be. So if you want the game to be aggressive and violent and quite tense, then that's the sort of game it will be. But there is a space in that game for something more profound, more interesting, I think, and I hope that we have written music that comes halfway to expressing those intangible aspects of the human condition that are, that you can't put into words.
Awesome. I think that's pretty much it on my end. Thank you, Joe, again for talking with us. Do you have anything else you want to add, or just sign off with this on?
Just thanks for listening, and that just I've been in this band for 15 years, and I am grateful every day that people want to listen to us. So thank you for everybody's support.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the game very much, and looking forward to listening to hear more of the music. So again, thank you very much for talking with us, and I think we'll end it there.
Thanks, dude.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate it.
That's right.
I will.
Hopefully, see you in New York.
Yeah, hopefully.